This young man is the 17th Gyalwa Karmapa Trinley Thaye Dorje. Ever since the 12th century, the Karmapas have been the leaders of the Kamikaze lineage of Tibetan Buddhism. The Karmapas are considered outstanding bodhisattvas, beings who've reincarnated again and again in order to help others. This is also the meaning of the name Karmapa. Karmapa means he who embodies the activity of all Buddhas, which means helping all beings. The Karmapa was born in Tibet in 1983. His father, Mipam Rinpoche, is a renowned teacher of the Nyingma tradition. His mother, Dechen Wangmo, dedicated herself to Buddhist practice from childhood. She recollects a dream that she had prior to her pregnancy. I dreamt of a group of young women. The most beautiful among them was holding a vessel. It was ornamented with the 8 auspicious symbols. She poured milk into it and gave it to me, saying, "You're going to be the mother of a Buddha." At the moment at which I was recognized as Karmapa, I was entrusted with a great responsibility, the responsibility not merely to help a few individuals, but to commit myself to the welfare of all beings. This is my commitment as Karmapa. In 1994, the Karmapa left his native Tibet. Kuntsik Shama Rinpoche, second to the Karmapa in the Kamikaze lineage, officially recognized him as the 17th incarnation of the Karmapa and formally welcomed the then 11-year-old at the Karmapa International Buddhist Institute in New Delhi. On March the 17th, 1994, the young Karmapa was introduced to the world as the 17th holder of the Black Crown. Since then, the Karmapa has been pursuing his studies in Buddhist philosophy and meditation in preparation for his future role. It is my goal to teach Buddhism and to support practitioners on the meditative path. The Karmapa's day is filled with studying and meditating. The computer also plays a role in his daily life. The Karmapa makes use of high technology when he studies ancient Buddhist texts. In the evenings, the Karmapa performs the Mahakala ritual, a practice emphasizing the wish that sentient beings may accomplish ultimate well-being without any hindrances. In March 1996, an international Kamikaze conference was held in Delhi. It was attended by representatives of the worldwide Kamikaze monasteries and centers, and by delegates from Buddhist and Tibetan organizations in India and the Himalayan regions. The conference afforded the 300 or so participants an opportunity to obtain first-hand information about the events that had surrounded the recognition of the reincarnation of the 16th Karmapa. When the conference was over, the participants asked His Holiness the Karmapa to give an empowerment into Chenrezig, the Bodhisattva of compassion. Karmapa Thaye Dorje acceded to this request and for the first time in his life gave an initiation. Chenrezig is a realized bodhisattva who unstintingly cares for all beings in love and compassion. The participants prepare kataks, the white scarves that serve as symbolic offerings for the empowerment. To prepare myself for the empowerment, I meditate on Chenrezig. During the initiation, I identify myself with Chenrezig, but also visualize him in the space in front of me and take the empowerment from him. Then I transfer it to others. Karmapas are considered to be emanations of Chenrezig and ultimately inseparable from him. Precisely for this reason, receiving a Chenrezig initiation from the Karmapa is felt to be something very special. Empowerments belong to the Vajrayana level of Buddha's teachings, often known in the West as Tibetan Buddhism. The Vajrayana consists of highly effective methods that are practiced on the basis of the other teachings of the Buddha. The empowerments are the gateway through which the practitioner enters this field of practice. In the various sections of one of these Vajrayana initiations, the object is to guide the practitioner to a profound understanding of the nature of his mind. Proceeding from this initial impulse, the practitioner goes on to deepen his understanding by means of consistent meditation. In the outward, ritual aspect of the empowerment, Karmapa Thaye Dorje recites the prescribed text, accompanying the meditation with ritual instruments. He also uses certain symbolic objects like a vessel and several small images. These are symbolic utensils with which the Karmapa eventually touches the practitioners to show that the individual constituent parts of the empowerment have actually been transmitted to them. After the empowerment, the participants of the conference present symbolic offerings to Karmapa Thaye Dorje and Khyentse Kshama Rinpoche. First, they receive a mandala, an offering of perfect worlds. After that, the international representatives present them in turn with a Buddha statue, a symbol of vital power, a text on highest wisdom embodying teaching activities, and finally a stupa representing enlightened realization. The most important thing for practitioners are learn and practice the Dharma carefully and maintain discipline to ensure that you are successful in both. Once the delegates have departed, life at the Karmapa International Buddhist Institute returns to normal. This is Mathix, as the Karmapa was later to name him. We're witnessing his first encounter with his master. "8 months have passed. Sometimes the Karmapa spends his leisure hours on the roof terrace of the Institute. It makes an ideal racetrack for remote-controlled cars, and Mathix seems to like them as well. Meanwhile, 700 miles to the east, preparations for a great event are underway. In a few days, the Kaji Mönlam, the practice of aspiration prayers, will take place in Bodh Gaya, one of the most important places of Buddhist pilgrimage. Thousands of practitioners are expected. The Karmapa too will attend the event. In Bodh Gaya, along the route that the Karmapa will follow, 7 welcoming gates are erected. Bodh Gaya is the place at which Buddha Shakyamuni reached enlightenment 2,500 years ago. It is located in Bihar, one of the poorest regions of India. Bodh Gaya itself lives from the influx of pilgrims and tourists, and the souvenir trade flourishes here. The Buddha taught that those who did not encounter him personally should visit the 4 great Buddhist places of pilgrimage. The most important of these 4 is Bodh Gaya. According to Buddhist scriptures, 1,000 Buddhas will appear in our era and will all reach enlightenment at precisely this spot. The large stupa was erected soon after Buddha's death and was enlarged several times over the centuries. The top of the stupa was fashioned by the great Buddhist master Nagarjuna. It contains numerous relics of Buddha. The statue inside the stupa dates back about 2,400 years. Many of the smaller stupas contain relics of a number of realized beings. Behind the stupa stands the Bodhi tree, the tree beneath which Buddha Shakyamuni achieved enlightenment. The present-day tree is said to have grown from a shoot of the original Bodhi tree. Throughout the history of Buddhism, Bodh Gaya has consistently played a key role. Innumerable Buddhist practitioners have followed Buddha Shakyamuni in coming to this place where they practiced and offered aspiration prayers for the benefit of all beings. It's for this reason that the blessing which emanates from this place is said to be particularly strong. In Buddhism, the gathering of a great number of practitioners at a place rich in blessings is believed to be especially propitious. And in this particular instance, the presence of the two great bodhisattvas, Gyalwa Karmapa Thaye Dorje and Khyentse Kshama Rinpoche, will greatly enhance the power of the aspiration prayers. Buddha taught us that aspiration prayers offered by a large sangha at a special place are sure to be fulfilled, and a Buddha isn't mistaken. 4,000 people had originally been expected to attend the ceremonies. Bodh Gaya is only a small town, so large tents were put up to provide accommodation for everybody. A large tent housed the huge kitchens. Fireplaces were dug out in the ground, and many helpers ensured that the needs of the participants were met. By the time the coaches bringing pilgrims began to arrive on December the 19th, everything was ready for them. In the end, more than 14,000 people came from Tibet, Nepal, Ladakh, Sikkim, Bhutan, India, Taiwan, Hong Kong, Malaysia, Singapore, and from the West. And yet, there were no problems providing for them all. The altar for the aspiration prayers is prepared on the northern side of the stupa, directly beneath the Bodhi tree. Gyalwa Karmapa and Khyentse Kshama Rinpoche will later participate in the prayers here. They will live in the Kaji monastery at Bodh Gaya, where preparations are also in full swing. Nuns and monks, as well as lay people from east and west, converge on the site of the stupa and begin the aspiration prayers. For this year's aspiration prayers, Kaji Lamas have gathered at this special place in Bodh Gaya to offer wishes that the teachings of Buddha may flourish. While the recitation of the aspiration prayers continues in Bodh Gaya, Gyalwa Karmapa and Khyentse Kshama Rinpoche arrive at the airport in Patna, the capital of Bihar state. They will travel on to Bodh Gaya the next day. 100,000 butter lamps are lit at the stupa as offerings. They're tended day and night. At the Kaji monastery, the final preparations for the Karmapa's arrival are being made, while the Karmapa's convoy with its police escort leaves Patna. Just before his arrival, auspicious symbols are drawn on the path to the monastery. This is an old Tibetan custom that reflects the great respect for spiritual teachers. People line the road to witness the Karmapa's arrival. More than 40 Rinpoches, Tibetan dignitaries, have come to welcome the Karmapa in traditional fashion. On the next day, an important event in the Karmapa's life is planned. He will take the refuge and layman's vow. Before one can take the full monastic vows, one must have taken the preliminary monastic vows. They're based on the lay vows. Yalwa Karmapa will soon be 14, so he will take the lay vows first. They're a prerequisite for Dharma practice, marking as they do the beginning of practice. More than 14,000 people gather at the stupa to take part in the aspiration prayers, while the Karmapa prepares for the refuge ceremony. Taking refuge means that one decides to embark on the Buddhist path. Of course, the Karmapa has taken this decision already, but this is the official refuge ceremony as the Karmapa. Shama Rinpoche has deliberately chosen Bodh Gaya as the setting. Karmapa Thaye Dorje thus became the first of the 17 Karmapas to take these vows at the place where Buddha achieved enlightenment. The ceremony is held in the temple inside the main stupa. The Karmapa repeats the verses by which he takes refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. The finger snapping at the end indicates that the refuge has been truly transmitted. As part of the vow, a lock of his hair is cut off, symbolizing the decision to follow in the footsteps of the Buddha, who cut off his long hair when he embarked on his spiritual journey. Shama Rinpoche also formally bestows a name on the Karmapa, which in short is Karmapa Trinley Thaye Dorje. After the ceremony, the Karmapa, accompanied by Shama Rinpoche and other teachers, visited the Bodhi tree. After the prostrations, the Karmapa sits under the tree and makes wishes, while Theravada monks recite prayers. Some Buddhist traditions ascribe even greater symbolic significance to the Bodhi tree than to the statue inside the temple. The leaf that is given to the Karmapa had fallen directly in front of him while he was making prostrations. It had landed exactly on the spot which he'd touched with his hands. This, the Theravada monks explain, is an exceptionally auspicious sign that the Karmapa is a very great bodhisattva. Afterwards, the Gyalwa Karmapa and Kunsik Shamapa take their place for the recitation of the aspiration prayers. First, though, the traditional offerings are brought to the Karmapa as a sign of welcome. These objects represent 8 particularly auspicious symbols. It's said that they were presented to the Buddha after his attainment of full enlightenment. Then Khenpo Chödrag Tenpel, a well-known scholar of the Kaji tradition, delivers an address. He outlines 5 specific conditions which, in conjunction, are especially propitious for development on the spiritual path. These 5 conditions relate to the perfect teacher, the listener, time, place, and teaching. On the subject of the perfect teacher, he says, generally speaking, the teacher is the incomparable Buddha Shakyamuni. He accumulated merit and wisdom for the duration of 3 great ages until he realized perfect enlightenment. Moreover, the Black Hat Karmapa and the Red Hat Karmapa are present as teachers today. They embody the activity of all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. In Tibet, they used to be compared with the sun and the moon. The Supreme Gyalwa Karmapa is the noble Bodhisattva Chenrezig, and the Supreme Gyalwa Shamapa is Buddha Amitabha. This is described in numerous sutras and tantras. Mahasiddha Karmapakshi, the second Karmapa, once said, "In future I will appear in the form of 2 beings. This will allow me to benefit infinitely many beings." Thus, he prophesied his appearance as the Black Hat Karmapa and the Red Hat Karmapa, who take on different bodily manifestations but share the same mind stream. Similarly, the 5th Shamapa, Kunchok Yenlag, said, "At times the Black Hat Karmapas and the Red Hat Karmapas will act as spiritual masters for each other, and at times they will be students of each other." The 5th Shamapa, Kunchok Yenlag, also said that showing him respect was tantamount to showing respect to the Karmapa, because they were inseparable manifestations as master and student. The Supreme 16th Gyalwa Karmapa, Rangjun Rigpe Dorje, said on many occasions that Karmapa and Shamapa were inseparable in body, speech, and mind. Followers of all of the traditions of Tibetan Buddhism are present. Most of them have formed into groups for the recitation of the Aspiration prayer. Thousands of practitioners and 40 tulkus and rinpoches of the Kaji lineage, as well as lamas from different schools of Tibetan Buddhism, pilgrims who were visiting Bodh Gaya at the time, take part in the prayers. This great event was made possible by the financial support of Mrs. Sandy Yen. Many also take the opportunity for individual practice. Buddhist practice is a supreme method of surmounting disturbing emotions. Beings who liberate themselves from the 5 mental poisons overcome the causes that otherwise result in reincarnation in the relative world and prevent new negative karma from arising. The teachings are thus a source of peace and well-being, and for this reason we offer wishes that the teachings of Buddha may flourish in our world. The site of the stupa is thus a scene of busy activity day and night. Of course, people also take the opportunity to receive a personal blessing, even if this means waiting in line for a long time. The day has come for the Karmapa to leave. Many people gather to bid farewell to him and Shama Rinpoche. On the return journey, the Karmapa makes a detour to places of pilgrimage in the vicinity of Bodh Gaya. First, he visits Vulture Peak near the village of Rajgir. It is said that Buddha Shakyamuni taught here for 7 years, and it was here that he gave the teaching on supreme liberating wisdom, Prajnaparamita, one of the central teachings in Mahayana Buddhism. The Karmapa's last excursion takes him to see the ruins of the famous Buddhist university of Nalanda. For more than 1,000 years, the Theravada as well as the Mahayana levels of the Buddha's teachings were studied and practiced at this place. Nalanda thus served as a repository of knowledge and has gone down in history as the foremost Buddhist teaching center. From Patna, the Karmapa returns to Delhi, where he continues his education. In April 1997, Gyalwa Karmapa moves to Kalimpong. Kalimpong is a small town in the Himalayas. It's a charming place set amidst the mountains with a wonderful view of Kanchenjunga, one of the world's highest peaks. In earlier times, Kalimpong was an important junction for the trade with Tibet. The cultural diversity of the population goes back to this period. With the Chinese invasion of Tibet, however, the town's commercial significance began to decline. Trinley Thaye Dorje lives on the outskirts of Kalimpong, in a house that the 16th Karmapa visited on several occasions. In 1959, at the invitation of the previous owner, the 16th Karmapa spent a few weeks here. On that occasion, he also conducted a ceremony peculiar to the Karmapas, in which they wear the black crown. I moved to this quiet and pleasant place because it's very conducive to my studies. Here too, the Karmapa's daily agenda consists mainly of studies and meditation. Early in the morning he meditates in his room. The rest of the day is dedicated to his studies of Buddhist philosophy. Furthermore, he regularly receives English tuition from Dr. Sprigg, who recollects his first encounter with the Karmapa.
In fact, we were able to discuss even religious matters from the very beginning. This was quite unexpected.
During the breaks, the Karmapa enjoys the private atmosphere and the good air of Kalimpong, a welcome break from the hours he spends sitting. As soon as I'm familiar with a place, I feel at ease. In the early evening, a drum summons the monks who live in the house to the Mahakala ritual. On September the 19th, 1997, the Karmapa receives the news of Topka Rinpoche's death. The General Secretary of the 16th Karmapa and one of the teachers of the 17th Karmapa, Thaye Dorje, he was highly respected for his extraordinary scholarship and his great experience in Buddhist practice. After his death, his body remained in meditation posture for 1 day, indicating that his practice had borne fruit. Topka Rinpoche was related by marriage to the royal family of Bhutan, where he lived most of the time and where he's to be cremated. The ceremony is scheduled for October the 16th.
Well, I enjoy very much what I'm doing.
The Karmapa has been invited to attend the ceremonies. On October the 13th, he makes the journey from Kalimpong to Bhutan. After a few hours' drive, he is welcomed in Pintsoling on the Indian border by Prince Namgyal Wangchuk. The next day, he proceeds to Thimphu, the capital of Bhutan. Many people are waiting on the street to receive the Karmapa's blessing. The Gyalwa Karmapas are well known in Bhutan. The father of the present king, as well as his grandfather and his great-grandfather, were devotees and benefactors of the 15th and the 16th Karmapa. In Thimphu, the Karmapa is welcomed by Shama Rinpoche and members of the royal family. First, he visits the Kudung, the body of Topka Rinpoche. He also visits the National Memorial Stupa that was built in memory of His late Majesty King Jigme Dorje Wangchuk. Here, he's received by the Secretary for Religion and Culture. His Majesty the King of Bhutan, Jigme Sengye Wangchuk, pays a visit to Gyalwa Karmapa. His Holiness the Je Khenpo, the head of the Buddhists of Bhutan, also attends the ceremonies. Court protocol puts him on an even rank with the king. For the cremation, in accordance with the Vajrayana teachings, Topka Rinpoche's body is ornamented with ritual garments and placed in a mandala. While Bhutanese monks conduct rituals under the guidance of His Holiness the Je Khenpo, Kamikaze monks from Sikkim practice under the guidance of His Holiness the Karmapa in the adjacent tent. The royal family also attends the ceremonies. Several ministers and diplomats follow suit. After the cremation, the stupa-shaped oven is locked for 3 days. During this time, the Karmapa visits a number of places of pilgrimage in Bhutan. News of his visit evidently travels fast because wherever he goes, there's always a crowd of people waiting for his personal blessing. Karmapa Thaye Dorje also accepts an invitation extended by the Indian ambassador and visits him in his residence. On October the 20th, the final ceremonies related to the cremation take place. The ashes are mixed with flour and fashioned. These tsatsas, they are called, are then wrapped in pieces of colored cloth. Gyalwa Karmapa, Shama Rinpoche, members of the family, and other people who are close to Topka Rinpoche throw these tsatsas in the river. Perseverance is very important. It arises spontaneously in us when we enjoy what we're doing. Loving kindness naturally engenders awareness and patience, and these qualities will make our mind clear and happy, no matter in which Dharma practice we engage.